but we want to make sure that everyone has a place to stay, and that's why we're working on more shelters.
Governor Jeff Beard with WNC Radio. Wanted to ask you an update on the number of North Carolina National Guard troopers that have been activated, and also, I guess, if you can you differentiate between those that have been activated and those who are in a position of a go position right now?
We have 2,800 National Guard troops that have been activated and are ready to go, but we have even more in reserve who understand that they could be called to active duty. And I might recognize Major General Jim Ernst to talk about the situation that we have with the military right now, which we have decided to deploy because we think it's important. So, Joe.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Governor. Like the Governor said, we have 2,800 soldiers that have been activated for state active duty. Right now we have about another 1,000 that are on a 5-day recall after the storm that we can bring in immediately. And in addition to that, we have a partnership with the Title X forces at Fort Bragg, and we're having 40 high water vehicles brought to us, so it's a total team effort to support the state of North Carolina. Okay.
Just one follow-up to clarify.
Yes, sir.
All 2,800 are in a position right now that they're at a center or they're...
Yes, sir. Well, all 2,800 that we have on state active duty now are in position at armories or at staging centers. Predominantly, they're west of I-95, so as soon as the storm passes, they'll be ready to move. Any further questions? Okay, thank you.
This Title X agreement is important because they're going to have significant resources with high water vehicles to be able to get resources out. We know there are going to be a lot of flooded roads, so that's one of the reasons why we did this. Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
No problem. I just had a question regarding the additional shelters. Are you looking to open up some of those, perhaps more so here in the Triangle, so people aren't having to travel long distances to find a place to go to?
Yes. Yes, they're working on more here in the Triangle as well, and we may see a number of additional mega shelters as well. We have one mega shelter open at Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Winston-Salem, and we thank Wake Forest University and the community there for helping us. Other questions?
Just to piggyback back off that, Governor, do we have a sense of how much unmet demand there is for shelters, or unmet demand due to geography and just travel distances?
I know that some people have, that some shelters are full that people have gone to, and the shelters were full, but they have found other shelters that were open, but we think there's going to continue to be more. I don't think we can put an exact number on it. We just aren't sure how many are going to need it, but as long as there is continued demand, we will look to continue to open shelters. And we're grateful to our local partners, because there are a number of counties that have opened their own shelters, and we try to coordinate all of that effort. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Sure. Patrick Rufford, Reuters. Just looking at the map of the rainfall in around Wilmington, 20, 30 inches. I think Matthew, I have it right, some of those areas was maybe 20. Looks like some of these areas you're going to get 10 inches more rain than 2 years ago. I just wonder if you have any sense of, you mentioned people on rivers, riverway being aware that flooding. Do you think that message has reached people that this could be more of an inland flooding event than you have seen in the state?
We have been saying every day, almost for a week, that this is an historic storm, and that we are worried about two things as much as any. One is the ocean surge, which is going to contribute to our inland flooding because it's blocking the rivers from being able to flow out into the ocean, and the rivers spill over the banks, in addition to the significant and historic rainfall that we're about to have. So we've been saying this for days and days, that, and I think our local governments have done a pretty good job, particularly with our mapping, in trying to tell people in low-lying areas that flooding's coming. As a matter of fact, I was looking at some communities that I had been to that had been flooded before and were surprised that they were flooded, and they had to be rescued out of rushing water. Those people are gone now, have evacuated, and there are a lot of places like that across the state that have evacuated. And you know, we're are concerned that there may be more people who aren't leaving in areas where they should, and that's why I continue to tell people that they need to get to a safe place and get to it now, because our flooding issue is only going to get worse. We're going to come and do these briefings a couple of times a day, and each day we're going to have more areas that have been flooded.
Thank you. Joe Renison with the Financial Times. Obviously there's been an awful lot of preparations already. Do you feel like you have all the resources that you need at your disposal? Is there anything else you would like to have prepared already, or would like to still prepare before the sort of brunt of the storm hits that you have not been able to because you do not have the resources that you need?
I believe that we have the resources we need to meet this crisis. We know, though, that we are in the early days and that we are going to need significant resources for cleanup and recovery. So I think we are ready for this response to emergency. I think with all of the rescue teams that we have in place and all of the shelters that we're setting up, I think we can get through this initial part of the storm. But as every day goes by, I think we can all see the significant challenges ahead of us for debris removal, for cleanup, for repairing roads and bridges and infrastructure and getting people back in their home. One thing we've learned is that the challenge of affordable housing is great even without these storms. And when you look at inland flooding, the people who can afford it the least often get hit the most. And that's one thing that's concerning and frustrating about all of this. But we will need significant resources at that point. We just don't know the scope of that right now.
Just as a follow-up as well, you mentioned that over 12,000 people have already been evacuated.
No, there have been significantly more evacuated. There are a little over 12,000 people in our shelters. Okay. But there's probably 750,000 up to 1 million people who have evacuated from areas.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a difference here. Right? Right, Spray?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
I wonder what happens to those people after the storm, and whether there is already a plan in place for those people after the storm. Obviously, they're in shelters now, but if roads are closed, if roads are blocked, if their homes are destroyed, if all of those things happen as a result of this storm, what happens to those people?
We will work closely with our FEMA partners to help people whose homes have been destroyed or people who can't get back into their homes. Obviously,